Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you a really fun Void build for the exotic Pulse Rifle Collective Obligation. You get this from Rolk in the Vow of the Disciple raid. I have covered this weapon in the past. I have, done builds for this in the past. But as of Season 18, it has been buffed a ton. Honestly, it's a really good Pulse Rifle now. So if you've got this thing, it might be worth getting it out of the vault. I'll just go over the main buffs that they did to this thing. So first off, the actual buff to the gun, that this part, Void Leech, this perk lasts longer now, which is great. It doesn't have a cooldown, so once it runs out, so it lasts 15 seconds, and then once that 15 seconds is up, before you would have like a cooldown, and you can't regain buffs, you can't leech debuffs while that's happening. However, now it doesn't have a cooldown, so once that timer runs out, you can instantly regain your debuffs that you stole from enemies before and use those against enemies again. It also does 20% more damage while Void Leech is active, which is great because it already got a 40% buff when Witch Queen released against minor enemies, but now it does 20% more to every enemy on top of that, which is really cool. It takes less time to actually get Void Leech. Killing enemies that are debuffed instantly charges the Void Leech, so you don't have to actually keep hitting them, and then, killing them, you might not even get the buff, or whatever. And then if you get affected by a Void debuff, you also just instantly charge the debuff of that type that you got hit by. There are a few other things in there, but they're not really notable. This is kind of just those were the big changes, basically. And now the gun is very, very strong. So the other exotic that we're going to be pairing with this is Contraverse Hold. The reason for this is because you want as many grenades as possible, really. The main source of the buffs, or the void debuffs that we're going to be leeching, all come from our grenade. However, we do have other things that will, make other debuffs as well. So, let's get into this. As for the subclass, pretty much everything up here is whatever you want it to be. We're using this for Volatile, because Collective Obligation can absorb Volatile, and this is a nice source of that. And I'm going to be using Vortex Grenades because they're arguably the best nade for Contraverse Hold. However, you can use literally any other nade. It is completely fine. My version of this build does not have Suppression in it because Warlocks can't get easy Suppression without Suppressor Grenades. But if I put on Suppressor Grenades, I can't use Contraverse Hold, and I like having Contraverse Hold to chain infinite grenades. So if you want to use Suppression Grenades, take off Contraverse Hold, otherwise use whatever you want. Now we have Feed the Void, which is going to give us Devour when we get ability kills. This is phenomenal because it means that we are practically unkillable as long as we're getting kills, so that's amazing. And it also gives us Grenade Energy, which is awesome, because we need as many grenades as possible. And then we have Chaos Accelerant, which is basically how you use Contraverse Hold. You have to have this in here if you're going to use Contraverse Hold. And what this does is it will buff certain grenades, which in this case would be the Vortex Grenade. It makes it last longer and have a bigger AoE. Axiom Bolts have an additional Seeker, Scatter Grenades track, and Magnetic Grenades become the handheld Supernova. So that's really awesome. These are the aspects that you will want to use. I mean, technically you could sacrifice, if you're going to use Suppression Grenades, then take out Chaos Accelerant and use Child of the Old Gods for extra weakening. Otherwise, this is what you want to run. Now for the Fragments, we have Grenades Weaken, because obviously we want a source of weakening in the build so that Collective Obligation can take it. We have Volatile rounds on Grenade Kills. This is great because we're going to be using our grenades to weaken, and we're using our grenades as a whole to pretty much cycle the build. So we have another source of Volatile rounds here. Obviously this procs Volatile, and we can absorb that and use it in Collective Obligation as Volatile rounds. But actually having Volatile rounds on top of that to also just continuously absorb those is really nice. And then finally, I just have Melee Final Blow Start Regeneration because I needed it for stats. Because, Resi is very, very good. Otherwise, I'd put in Grenades Last Even Longer. Or I'd put in Devour Last Longer. But it's up to you. Now, as for the mods, we have Bountiful Wells. Bountiful Wells means you will get an extra well for every well we make. So normally you'd get one well, but now we make 2 wells. And we're going to be making Void Wells with Elemental Ordnance, which is Grenade Kill, Spawn a Well. This is awesome because we're going to be weakening with the grenade, and we're going to be trying to get grenade kills to get volatile rounds. So on top of doing those things, we're also going to get a well, and with that well, we are going to be using Well of Tenacity, which is going to give us a 40% DR increase for 6 seconds, which is really nice. And of course, we're going to be making 2 wells, so we can pick up one, and then once the 6 seconds runs out, we can pick up the next. Get an extra 6 seconds, which is awesome. And then we have Font of Might, which is going to buff the Collective Obligation by 25% every time we pick up a Void Well. That lasts for 10 seconds. And we're going to be making lots of Void Wells because we have practically infinite nades. So we'll always have that extra 25% damage added onto this, on top of the 40% to miners and the 20% when Void Leech is active, which is really, really awesome. So the gun gets buffed exponentially in the build. We have infinite grenades and infinite health with Devour and, you know, Contraverse Hold and Devour, I guess, in this case as well, because Devour gives us grenades. And then we also have lots of ways of getting Volatile, so we can add it to Collective Obligation. Great add clear, it's awesome. As for the other weapons, you can use whatever you want. I've just got a Blinding Launcher and Cataclysmic, because Cataclysmic is very, very good. Although you could use the Typhon and abuse that with Font of Might, since that's very good. But for solo play, I just use Cataclysmic. Typhon's more for a team-based thing with Fire and Line. But yeah, everything else is kind of just to help out the weapons I have on. Obviously, I'm making orbs for faster supers and whatever. I've got resistances. Utility kickstart to get rifts back faster, it's whatever, you know, everything else doesn't matter, it's just what I've mentioned that kind of matters. So that's the Collective Obligation build, very straightforward, very easy to make. It makes the gun very, very powerful. I will show a little bit of gameplay, just showing off, you know, absorbing the buffs, and maybe a little bit of added clear as well, just to show you how it performs. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this, thanks for watching, adios.
Just that you were worried about us, was it, Finch? You've been here.
Yeah, this is where I met him. A knight. My guardian. This is where I thought I mattered.